Welcome to the West Coast Podcast. I'm Shane, and is with me as always is Trey.
Yes, sir. We are coming at you guys on a Saturday, February 8th. This is the eve of the Super Bowl. We were supposed to get you guys this podcast yesterday, but we had a little bit of difficulty because the PlayStation Network.
Yo, you
Yo,
there?
you there? Yeah, I'm there. My PlayStation. The the PlayStation knew that I was gonna talk bad about them, so it butted in. So all right, well, PlayStation, you freaking messed my flow all the way up, so I appreciate that. So on Friday we had server issues. Approximately 6 p.m. the servers were down, and I don't even know when exactly they came back up, but they were up probably I'd say earlier today at about 1 o'clock noon. This is very reminiscent of the 2011 hack attacks that happened on the PlayStation servers. Back in 2011, PSN experienced a similar outcome, only that time it was hacked. They had a bunch of leaked information from users and caused a bit of a scene, and it is to my understanding that it is still a mystery to this day. They still haven't came out and said who actually was responsible for the hack of the PlayStation Network in 2011. But the mass consensus that people think that is responsible for is the hack group Anonymous. The Anonymous hack group, which is pretty notable for causing some pretty hacks. They were believed to be behind the attacks in 2011 on the PlayStation servers. But with all that being said, we are back up and running. I'm gonna give you guys this podcast. Of course, we had to come live when it's the Super Bowl and all that going on and stuff. So we appreciate the patience. And if you guys let us know in the chat section if you're watching this on the replay who you got winning the Super Bowl. And if you're watching this before the Super Bowl, you can go to my YouTube channel, Trey is Raw, and I did a simulation. I'm not gonna, I guess I can't spoil the results, but it is a pretty crazy game. It was a high scoring game, and Justin Reed was doing kickoffs for the Chiefs for some reason. Do not think that will be the case for the Super Bowl, but you never know. So, Shane, are you fired up for the Super Bowl, and how have you been doing the last couple weeks? And what was your reaction when you heard about the servers that went down?
You know, I'm doing all right, Trey. I definitely can't wait until they get rid of the pre-lit stuff. So February 14th, I'm excited. I did see your stream, bro, of the Super Bowl for the most part. I saw that you got a lot of views, man. So shout out to Trey, man. I was gonna say that to you. I'll just say it on air, dude. You should do more of that stuff. You get good views on that, bro. So maybe you could do that like a franchise, bro. I'm just throwing it out there, or like people like that stuff, bro. Um, but yeah, the server error, the server being down sucked because we had the podcast set up for last night, but it all works out at the end. I'm not really upset. This way I don't have to get dotted up by, the pre-lit. So I'm okay there. I'm excited about the Super Bowl more because history's on the line and I get a pig out tomorrow. So what about you, Trey? Are you more excited about the game or about being able to eat?
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny you had said you were like, yeah, I was kind of glad that I didn't have to face the pre-lit stuff, and been playing a lot of online and stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, there was part of me that was kind of fortunate that the online servers weren't down because then I could do a lot of like the offline stuff that I like to do with like franchise and stuff, and I'm not like as uptight about it, and I like to play loose, but you know, excited to get back into it. But I just thought it was funny you had said that because I kind of felt the same way there. But yeah, I'm excited as Shane mentioned. It's gonna be history. You know, I would have much rather seen the Commanders on the NFC side of things. Really, the only two teams I didn't want to see from the NFC side of things were Philly. I just don't like the cut of Philly's jib. And Green Bay, I never really cared for, but I feel like any other team I would have been cool with seeing them, but it was the Eagles. But you know, one thing that kind of changed my mind about that was I was watching the NFC Championship game and they were showing a quote by Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley said something to the effect of, "We want to prove a point that you can still run the ball down someone's throat and still win a Super Bowl." So, with all that being said, I think Saquon has a chance to prove that. And, you know, the first question that I want to ask you, Shane, and I don't think this has really got a whole lot of consideration, but is the Saquon Barkley acquisition that the Philadelphia Eagles made, in your opinion? Because I would say, in my opinion, it has to go down. It might be recency bias, but I think that the Saquon Barkley acquisition is going to go down in history as one of the best free agent signings when it's all said and done. So, what do you think about that?
You know, I agree if, and it's a big if Philadelphia wins tomorrow, I believe it'll go down as one of the greatest acquisitions in Philadelphia sports history. I don't believe they would be in this position if Saquon was not on the team. I'm sure a lot of people actually agree with that. So it's not like I'm like, whoa, hey, Shane's going out of the comfort zone. No, it's just, I just really believe that Saquon Barkley changed everything for Philly. Philly was a good team still. Don't get me wrong. It's just Saquon Barkley put them over the top. So yeah, if they win tomorrow and they stop the history of the Kansas City Chiefs, I will say that it was the greatest acquisition for a Philadelphia sports team in a long time.
Yeah, no, and I think that the Philadelphia Eagles GM, I believe, I think it's Harry Roseman, or I probably butchered the name, but something to that. But I've been hearing a lot of people in Philly saying he's probably one of the best GMs in the NFL right now because, I mean, not only did he bring in Saquon Barkley, but you got AJ Brown, who's playing at a pretty consistent level, and some pretty good acquisitions on the defensive side of the ball too. So I think that they're clicking on all cylinders. But with that being said, Shane, I got some questions for you. And the first question that I want to ask you in relation to the Super Bowl is number one, what is the first Super Bowl that you remember watching? And aside from the personal bias with like the Seattle Seahawks, what Super Bowl would you say has been your favorite to watch up until this point?
You know what? Like I said, I'm gonna date myself, bro, but I believe the very first one I can kinda remember is when the Washington kicker kicked it wide. I believe it was the Giants. It's like little memories, like here and there. The earliest one that I can remember from like just being like there completely was, I believe it was 92. I believe it was Buffalo and the Dallas Cowboys. We went to my parents' family friend's house, and I just remember I would watch it off and on, but I just remember that there were so many sodas in that house, and I had never been able to get like regular pop. Just like open the fridge and shoot, there's orange pop or Sprite or whatever. They had a downstairs fridge, and I'm sure they brought it out, probably maybe not for the Super Bowl party for the kids, because there's a lot of little kids there, young kids there, and then the adults were watching the game, having adult beverages. Some were having pop, but that was my biggest memory, bro. Besides that, and I think it was Leon Lett. The biggest memory for me remembering that game is a butt whooping, I believe, and Leon Lett had a fumble return, and held his hands out, and Don Beebe chased him down, knocked it out, but it was already a blowout. But yeah, so that is earliest memory, like legit, like start to finish memory. I think I was like 8 or 9, but I do kind of remember like the Giants and the Washington Super Bowl. Or no, it couldn't have been. I'm lying. See, I'm lying, Trey. It can't be. They're from the same conference. Wait, dude, I am so confused. Which team? Hey, Trey, help me here, man, because I'm gonna look dumb. What was the team in the 1990 that kicked the Super Bowl wide right? Can you help me on that? Because I just sounded like an idiot for like 5 minutes.
Are you talking about Buffalo?
Did he kick it wide right?
I think so.
Norwood?
Norwood, yeah, it was
See,
Buffalo.
so it wasn't
Yeah.
Washington. Obviously, Washington and the Giants are from the same conference. It was the Giants versus Buffalo, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the one I remember. It's not Washington and the Giants. I had a complete brain fart. So I guess you got to throw that out. So the one that I really remember completely was when I was 8 years old, and it was Dallas and Buffalo. The best Super Bowl I watched. I mean, there's a couple good ones. Trey, outside, I'll throw away the Seahawks. Right? Um, if I wasn't a Seahawk fan, the Patriots and the Seahawks. You got lucky there, Trey. Um, Another one was the Giants and the Patriots, where the perfect season was on deck. That was a really good one. Another one was the Titans versus the Rams, where the Titans, I believe, were like 2 or 3 yards short. Where McNair threw the ball and the receiver on a slant got 2, 3 yards. So there's been a couple good ones, or the Patriots versus the Falcons. So those are like all of them. Like for me, are like top 5 right there. What about you, Trey?
Yeah, and it's funny because like you talk about how you're gonna date yourself, and like when I tell you what my first Super Bowl memory, you're probably gonna be like Jesus, but I do remember like vividly, like I do have like a distinct memory of the Super Bowl, the first time that the Patriots played the Eagles, Super Bowl 39. I don't really remember too much of it, but that was kind of like I do remember like seeing something like that. But and to answer the question about like what Super Bowl was my favorite, I would probably have to say the most underrated Super Bowl that I feel like was played was Super Bowl 43 between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Arizona Cardinals. I don't think that Super Bowl gets a whole lot of press, but that was solid from start to finish, and really had the edge. You were on the edge of your seat for the whole game for that. So when I think of Super Bowls, that's probably the one game that comes to mind the most. So would you say that because you kind of grew up in an era where like I mean you had some blowouts here and there, but when you were coming up, I think that the blowouts were a lot more common back in like the 90s, 80s, and really when they introduced the salary cap, I feel like is when the Super Bowls kind of became more competitive. So would you say that even with them being blowouts all the time, were people still pretty interested to see kind of the Super Bowl, even when it was like the Dallas Cowboys and the 49ers that were dominating those eras back then?
That's a really good question, Trey. Obviously, I was super young, right? Even like early 90s, I was super young. But yeah, it was a lot of blowouts. So, like, for the most part, people ate food, like, and they'd watch a game. I mean, they didn't really have any rooting interests. Like, obviously, when I was in school, there's a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans, right, in the early 90s because, little kids usually grasp on to teams that are really good. So besides that, like my family, we'd watch Super Bowl and just like eat and watch it and hope for a good game. The salary cap definitely helped a little bit because I feel like there's less blowouts. I haven't gone through the last 24 years, but it definitely feels like for the 90s and late 80s, there was more blowouts than close games. I could be wrong. But a lot of times, like, what I did is I loved the commercials when I was young. Um, I do have a favorite commercial that my brother and I loved when we were young. I don't know if you want me to say it now or wait until later.
Oh yeah, we can go into that. Yeah, you can tell me about your favorite commercial. I would say for me the one commercial is like a super random commercial, but it was like kind of back when like in like when the whole auto tune thing was like at an all time high. And the one commercial that kind of sticks out for like no particular reason is they were doing like an auto tune Bud Light commercial, and T Pain was in it, but that's just like the one commercial that for some reason it sticks in my brains. But I'm just random like that. And also I like the Breaking Bad commercials too; those were pretty good. But yeah, go ahead, get into the Super Bowl commercial talk about it.
So I was young. My brother was young. Now, again, I could be screwing it up a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. But there always used to be a game in between the game. And there were these commercials every year. For maybe 3, 4 years where they had like either Bud Light versus Budweiser or something like that with little football helmets on top of the opening where you drink the beer. And they would play like a mini football game. And they'd have like 2 or 3 commercials throughout the Super Bowl. You should go check that out, Trey. It was pretty cool, man. I don't know why they took it away. That was probably my favorite commercial. They did have a lot of cool, like Doritos does a really good job, but yeah, that just sticks out to me for a core memory of the Bud Light. I'm gonna look it up. The Bud Light verse. Let's see if it comes up. Maybe I'm trying to figure out. It used to be like a Super Bowl game commercial. Maybe not. Dude, I'm going crazy, Trey.
Bringing up some non-existent memories. I feel you're kind of getting to that age. I don't know. Maybe it
Oh,
was
no, no,
just
no,
a
no.
dream
Hey,
or
bro, I am
something you
right. I
had
am
in it.
right. It's
Oh,
from
okay.
the late 80s to the early 90s. It was Budweiser versus Bud Light. It was called the Bud Bowl. I'm gonna send it to you, bro.
Yeah.
I'm gonna link you up. Actually,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna link it for anybody that wants to watch it later too. It's pretty interesting. I'm gonna just send you one of it right now. Okay, so I wasn't going completely crazy, you guys. I kind of went crazy, but about Washington versus the Giants when they're not even in the same, it's not opposite conferences. But anyways, go on, Trey. My bad.
All right. So Shane, I'm pitching you a hardball right now. This is going to be a tough question that I need you to think pretty hard about. So the Super Bowl with the Seahawks, you guys go to Denver, and you guys beat the brakes off of that Denver Broncos team and Peyton Manning. It was 43-8. You guys just absolutely dominated them. So the hard question that I have for you is, would you trade that game for either the game against the Patriots or the game against the Steelers?
Um, no, I wouldn't. I mean, because you're not going to rewrite history. I mean, maybe the team sticks together. Maybe the team sticks together better if, you know, Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos beat the Seahawks like 31-28 in a thriller, and there's no like controversy. It's just a great game. And then the Seahawks next year beat Tom Brady. Maybe because it might change it, but overall, I'm not going to change it. I unfortunately, like as you're a Patriots fan, but for me, I knew they were done right after that loss. It just I told people it. I was like, they're done. They're not even going to be good. Like they're not gonna have a dynasty after they lost that to the Patriots. And I don't know if you saw the paper, but like Brandon, I believe it was Brandon Meebane came out and said that Russell changed the play, but a lot of that is going like he is kind of I'm not going to say that he's wrong. It just seems weird because other players said it was a pass play from the very get-go, And so for him to say he changed it from a run to a pass, you would assume that Marshawn Lynch or a guy like Doug Baldwin, who really isn't like cool with Russell, would have raged about it, or Richard Sherman when he was mad. So I don't know. I think people start changing it. I do think it'll be interesting for the 30-30 for the Seattle Seahawks. I think that that title for the 30 for 30 will be called the dynasty that never was. That's what I think they'll call it.
All right, so yeah, the dynasty that never was. That's definitely. I mean, when you look at teams that kind of got forgotten, I feel like that. That Seahawks team with the Legion of Boom. They were pretty close. I mean, definitely. If things were to go a little bit differently, I could foresee that team, carrying the momentum forward and possibly winning another one. It would be a dynasty. But with that being said, and would you say that you're probably, when you look back on it, would you say that you're probably the most hurt about the Patriots Super Bowl or the Steelers? Because even the Steelers Super Bowl, I mean that you had like a lot of people have said that that Super Bowl in particular is like the worst officiated Super Bowl of all time. So, which of the losses would you say hurt the most to you?
It's weird, and I don't know if it's because the Seahawks had just won the championship the year before, but the Steelers one hurt worse because it did feel like iffy officiating. It was our first Super Bowl ever. I feel like Holmgren and Hasselbeck and Sean Alexander and all of them deserved, just better. And it was a tough, like, that one was a little worse to me than the Patriots, simply because I never knew if like the Seahawks were ever going to get back there. And people can be like, "Oh, what? You don't think that in your whole life, if you live to 75, the Seahawks will win the Super Bowl or make it to the Super Bowl and win it?" No, I'm not sure. I'm a Seattle Mariners diehard fan. They've never been to the World Series ever, 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 ever. And there's organizational history, and it's been going on for 47 on its 48th year right now, Trey. So it's older than me. I wasn't even born the first 8 years, 7 years. So no, like there's no promise. So the for me, the Steelers was a little bit harder for me than the Patriots. I did think the dynasty was going to be ruined after the Seahawks lost to the Patriots. I think that if they would have ran the ball and Marshawn Lynch would have fumbled and your Patriots would have picked the ball up and they would have lost that way, the team would have recovered better. I think Russell Wilson was liked by some players, but I don't think he was liked like Marshawn Lynch, if that makes sense.
Right. And then it's kind of weird to me too because I look at that Steeler and that was another game, being from the Northwest. I mean, we both are, so that was definitely a game that I was kind of tuned into, and a lot of people, I remember going back to school and a lot of people were kind of up in arms about that loss. But when I look back on it in memory, like I almost think that Seattle team was kind of just like a wild card team that kind of fought its way in, but they went 13-3 that season, so they were like pretty dominant. I think the year before that they did pretty good too. So I mean, like, because that's like one of the teams I feel like that was forgotten. So like in the Mike Holmgren era when you had Matt Hasselbeck and those guys, who were some of the dominant players in that era that you feel like got forgotten, and like what made that team good in that era?
I mean, Mike Holmgren to me was an offensive genius for the most part. He wasn't that great on defense, and it shows for the most part. From what my memory's saying, I'm sure I'm not looking at stats right now. I'm not breaking down stats. We're winging it. I could trust his offense to almost put up 27 points a game, 28 points a game at times. Like their offense was amazing. They had Hall of Famers on the offensive line. They had Toback at the center, I believe. Left tackle was obviously Walter Jones. So, I mean, they had Hall of Famers Trey on the offensive line, and then Sean Alexander gets hated on more because of his ending with Seattle than what he did through the whole the whole year. Um, or for his whole career. Like, yeah, did he lay down? Did he lay down more in between the 20s than when they were inside the red zone? Yeah, he did. He really did, and it was annoying. So I'm looking at right now, Trey, just for fun. I'm looking at the rankings and see I am wrong. So the offensive rankings were number one for points for. So they're the best points for team, at least showing on Pro Football Reference. They were number two for yards. Passing, they were 13th. Rushing, they were third and the number one rushing touchdown team in the whole league. And see, I was wrong. See, I was wrong about Holmgren, so I apologize. So that year they were second on run defense and ninth on pass defense. 16th they were on yards, so they were more like bend but don't break. But for me, it's like I'm looking at the stats, and yeah, they pounded some teams, but like listen to some of these scores, Trey, because like they scored 37, 37, 42, 33, 31, 27, 24, 42, 41, 28, 28. That is wild in 2005 when you could grab and hold a little bit more. You know what I mean? So the players for me that I remember, obviously, one of my favorite players of all time was Marcus Trufant. He was obviously from WSU. He was fun to watch. Lofa Tatupu, he was a great linebacker. Um, so for me, it was, they had a couple good guys, but were they Hall of Famers? No. For me, it was more the offensive line, and then like Sean Alexander was really, really good. I'm trying to figure out. I'm having a brain fart, bro. On the other guy, he went to Minnesota. Oh, there we go. Steve Hutchinson. So right there, Trey, left tackle Hall of Fame, left guard Hall of Fame, center was all pro, right guard was really good, and right tackle was really good. Sean Alexander that year ran for 27 touchdowns. Hasselbeck 24 touchdowns, 9 picks. Max Strong, an underrated fullback, bro. The wide receiver core was not that great to me. The defense, like, there's nobody really that, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, they stand out. Like, Tutupu and maybe Wistrom. Bryce Fisher had a good year, but, like, you're not going to remember those names. I'm sure that you don't even know who those names are. And that's when you know, like, was the defense that good? I mean, the I don't know, man. They were definitely slept on, bro. I feel like if they had an elite defense, if they would have had Pete Carroll's defense, they probably win 2, 3 chips in a row, right? So that's where we are on that, Trey. Like, how many? Like, if you had to go back, what was your most painful Patriots Super Bowl loss? Was it the Giants when they were undefeated, or what one for you?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think you talk about, the receiver core, and I think one of the receivers, and I only know this because I'm a Patriots fan, but I believe that Dion Branch he played for you guys as well, and he won a few Super Bowls with us too. So I don't know if he was on the Holmgren teams back then, but that's one of the receivers that I remember that I'm pretty sure played for the Seahawks. But as far as, the most painful loss, I mean, the '07 Super Bowl I was definitely watching, but to be honest, kind of in like the first dynasty, I liked the Patriots, but the main thing that I was kind of interested back then as a kid was wrestling, so I didn't really get too attached to that. I think when you talk about losses that kind of impacted me the most when I was growing up. I think the one loss that definitely sticks with me is the AFC divisional game where we played the Jets and Rex Ryan was coaching and Mark Sanchez beat us and that just continued because there was a good drought from I would say 2011 when we lost the Giants twice, and then we didn't go to a Super Bowl for like 3 years. And 14 we played the Seahawks, and 14 and we got over the hump. But no, it was rough for a while. I mean, the Chiefs, but like people don't understand. It's like, yeah, the Patriots were never like 9-7, or we never went below 500 in the Brady Belichick era. But it was kind of a rough patch. It's kind of like you're there, but you never really got quite over the hump until after 2014. So when I finally did witness my team win a Super Bowl, when I was kind of locked in, I understood the game. I understood what people were doing. Was that game, and I was probably a senior in high school when we beat the Seahawks back then, so that was a pretty awesome experience. But I always say that when I look back in retrospect, that one year we lost to the Giants, and granted Gronk was hurt all the time, but dude, when we had that tandem of Rob Gronkowski and that other tight end, I forgot what his name was. It was like unstoppable. And when I look at that, like I'm like flabbergasted that why don't teams do that more? You get two beastly tight ends come out in 12 personnel. And if you have any semblance of a run game and you have like two beast tight ends on either side, like that is a team that is going to do some things crazy. So that's kind of the one team where I look back on now. I'm like, damn, we didn't win a Super Bowl, and we had those two teams. It was like impossible to stop. So, but I'm just kind of rambling at this point. But
Aaron
okay, Shane,
Hernandez.
I got some two Super Bowl bets that are not game related. Okay, so do you think, Shane, do you think that when Kendrick Lamar takes the stage at the Super Bowl halftime show, that he is going to do the Drake diss? That's my first one. And my second one, and this is going to be a little bit of a thinker that you have to think about. With the recent news that Donald Trump will be attending the Super Bowl, do you think that Donald Trump is going to take over the sightings of Taylor Swift? Do you think they will show Donald Trump more or less than Taylor Swift in this year's Super Bowl?
Oh, I like that. That's a good one. So the first one, I'll say absolutely 100% yes. He will do the diss song, Not Like Us. I don't know how long he'll play it. Maybe a verse, but he will do it. The second one, I will say no. I will say Taylor Swift 5, Donald Trump 2 or 3. That is my guess there. I think Taylor Swift will be seen on the TV more than Donald Trump. And I think it was Aaron Hernandez that you're talking about, Trey.
No, no, I said that ironically, and that's another thing too. Is like obviously I knew who that was, but it's like at what point, and this is like at what point did it become acceptable to say O.J. Simpson? Because I feel like for pretty much the a good portion of my life, and maybe it's because he's dead now, but I feel like there was like a good portion of my life to where like if you were in like a professional kind of environment, you weren't allowed to say O.J. Simpson like out loud, and like with her, and I think with like the whole thing with Hernandez doing what he did, I think it became more acceptable after the roast. Because after the roast, and like you had all those jokes about Aaron Hernandez kill it, like doing all that. So I think after that it became more acceptable. But come on, Shane, I knew who he was talking about. I was doing that ironically. Like,
Hey,
like
my
I don't know
bad,
what
bro.
kind of
I
fan
never
you
knew.
think
I
I
didn't
am.
know, man. I didn't know if you just had a brain fart. I had a brain fart thinking the Giants and Washington played a Super Bowl against each other. No, but um, it was kind of not talked about in the '90s. O.J. Simpson. He wasn't really brought up. He was more brought up, I would say, maybe in the early 2000s, but not very sporadically. And then I think he was brought up when he did the robbery to get his stuff back, and everybody's like, he's gonna get convicted. and then like more like it was just like, damn, like he kind of just like mocking the murders, like, and you still have people to this day arguing if he did it or didn't do it. I mean, he did it, but that's my personal opinion. He did it. He got away with it because he's rich, he's famous, he had the best lawyers you could. You had a racist cop getting documented saying very horrible racial slurs. You had evidence that seemed like it might be planted. Then you had basically Johnny Cochran fooled the prosecution and knew that they would ask OJ to put on the black glove. And so they told OJ not to take his arthritis pills or something. I don't know if it's arthritis or diabetes. I don't know. It was one of it. So his hand swelled. They tried to put the glove on. Obviously, it was like tight on it. And so then the famous quote is, "If the glove don't fit, you must acquit." And so basically, that happened. So people really didn't talk about it in the 90s. Like, and it was weird, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm gonna be that dumb 10-year-old. I wanted OJ to be found not guilty, bro. Strictly because I probably couldn't comprehend a celebrity doing something like that. Like, obviously, that was innocence of a child. You know what I mean? Like, so that like right there, like people were like, damn, you wanted OJ not guilty? Yeah, at 10 years old, I didn't really know about the case. I just saw the car chase and like, people saying he was innocent. I didn't know much more about that. I didn't look up the autopsy pictures like of the people that he disposed of, Nicole and Ron. But like something like that, Trey, nah, I didn't. I mean, that kind of opened up my eyes later on. But the biggest thing, bro, like that was like I was young, bro, and I remember I was like, I want to go to like, I want to be in California so I can be a celebrity. I want to be, in Hollywood. And then as I grew older, I hear all these like weird things, like the dude from Nickelodeon, like feet, like doing stuff with underage girls, like with the feet and with like having them come over and not have parents around, like in the pool or whatever. I can't remember what his name was, Dan something. But they're underage girls. That's the main part. But that was like, oh, maybe I'm glad I never went and did that. And then, but the biggest one for me, bro, like I am going off subject, but the biggest one for me was Bill Cosby. I loved Bill Cosby. I loved his cartoons. I love the Fat Albert movie. I actually went and saw him at Gonzaga, Trey. He was funny. He was hilarious. He seemed like a stand-up guy. And then he was putting Rousey stuff and pudding pops and drugging women. And I just realized, like, you might think somebody's a great person, celebrity-wise, but you don't really know them. Like, the only people that you haven't heard anything really bad about them after they passed away is like Fred Rogers, who did uh uh the Fred Rogers show. Um and then also like Steve Irwin and like Bob Ross. Like those are the only guys that like you couldn't find anything, really about. So like it's very rare to have a person that should be held above you, right? A lot of people hold celebrities and athletes and politicians and all these people above themselves. That's why they get God complexes. That's why they think that they're the greatest ever. But we don't really know them, man. Like, you don't know them. So, anyways, I'm going on like a long story. I'm sure Aaron Hernandez, you can bring him up now. Most people won't be like, they'll just be like, yeah, man, he was crazy, or yeah, man, CTE, or yeah, man, like whatever. But like, yeah, it's not as big as it was, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and it's crazy like going back and like they would post like the calls and stuff that Hernandez made while he was in prison, and he's talking to his wife, and his wife is over there like talking with other guys and this and that, and it's definitely pretty wild. And I always like, and I respect Robert Kraft for being accountable when it came to the whole Gerard Mayo situation, but for him to like get on a documentary and try to accuse Bill and say Bill knew about Aaron Hernandez, he didn't want to cut him right away. I like that is just absolutely despicable behavior for me on that one. But going back to to the original topic, the whole Taylor Swift and who's going to be shown more, Taylor Swift or Trump. It's funny to me, and I'm not gonna get into politics or whatever, but it's just kind of funny to me because I think like no matter how you feel about Trump, he's the kind of person that wants to be seen. Like he's not like a typical politician to where like he just wants to like kind of be in the shadows and do his own thing. So I think it'll be interesting because I can see like when he shows up to the Super Bowl, he's going to want to be seen, and especially with like the whole feud with like him and Taylor Swift and all that going on, I think is going to be pretty interesting on that regard. But Shane, you're talking about Bill Cosby. I mean, since we're kind of already going down this rabbit hole, another person like, were you a Michael Jackson fan at all growing up, and what was your whole take on that situation?
I did like Michael Jackson. I was too young with the when he was like, I mean, when he was like that dude. I wasn't. I just liked his music back then. Like it wasn't like, oh, like I was too little, right? The thing is like it's wild because like, did he do something? I'm not really sure on that, man. I think his dad ruined everything. Like his dad beat them. There's rumors that he was molested by his dad and he was stunted. Um, I'm not sure on that. Like, obviously, if he did it, he can burn in hell. Like, I probably pissed Michael Jackson fans off on saying that. If he didn't do it, then like, obviously, I feel bad for the dude. I'm not entirely sure on that. I just think he was a little off, and I can't like, yeah, like people are like, yeah, but he was sleeping in bed with kids and stuff. Yeah, that is weird as f. Okay, I'm not gonna be sleeping with little kids. Okay, now, my thing is like if he was stunted as like he's a grown man in a 12-year-old body, I mean 11-year-old body, like I don't know how that works. It's like, like I don't know how that works on that one, but um like Bill Cos like here I'll give you another example. Most people think Kobe Bryant didn't rape that girl strictly because Kobe Bryant was a good-looking dude and a celebrity, and from people I knew he could get any girl he wanted to, but like then one of my friends said it's about power, right? If that girl says no and he's used to saying hearing yes all the time and he has that in him, could he possibly have done it? I don't know. I wasn't there. I know that he says that he had one girl on the side that you would have rough sex with because his wife Vanessa didn't like rough sex. So I don't know. I don't know how that all works. Like, dude, I'm not there. The only reason, like, with like Bill Cosby, I'm like, yeah, he did it, is because there's like, I don't know, 50 or 60 women that came out that were afraid to come out in the 70s and 80s and 90s. The reason why I think that O.J. Simpson did it is because he beat the hell out of Nicole. Tons of times there's 911 calls of her saying that she's afraid that he's going to come kill her, him screaming in the background. Um, I just certain things like Michael Jackson, probably it leans toward he probably did something to the kids. But then there's people like Macaulay Culkin, who was little at the time, that said Michael Jackson never did anything to me. We would sleep in the same bed, but we'd watch like cartoons and we'd eat and popcorn and all that. So like, like he said, like it's weird, Trey, for sure. Like for me, I would
Me,
never
I
do
would
that.
never do that. Yeah, and I mean, I watched the documentary, The Leaving Netherland or whatever, and kind of the one thing that kind of popped out at me was because I can imagine if you're a kid, like, and like you're doing all this stuff with Michael Jackson, like just imagine, right? Like all of a sudden you're with Michael Jackson, you're experiencing all this stuff, all the wealth or whatever, and then all of a sudden you go back like how like I can't fathom going from one end of the spectrum of like complete wealth and then going back to like regular society where like all of a sudden no one even cares about you anymore. So I mean, on one hand, could you say like if that happened to me, would I just make up stuff and try to fabricate situations? No, but I could see if you have someone that's pretty vengeful and feels like they got done wrong or they felt like someone did something to them and they're just like F it, I want to take this guy down, I want to destroy his career. I mean, I could see that to some extent.
Here, Trey,
So
I got a
do
question for
you
you. Can you hear
think
me? Can you hear me?
yeah, what's up? Yeah.
So here, I'm gonna ask you a question since that. Okay, so you and me are hanging out, right? And you're over at my house right now, and you see that I have $100 on my end table. Are you gonna steal it?
No, I wouldn't steal it.
Okay, I would never ever on my life steal it, even if I was dirt broke, Trey, from you. Even if I was starving, bro, I wouldn't take it. But there's people out there that in my past have stolen money from me that I thought were my good friends. Um, I've had them steal my clothes and then lie about it and say they never stole my clothes, which I would allow them to borrow it because some of them couldn't afford clothes. They could have just asked me. But so it's different. Like supposedly I think it was never leaving Neverland or whatever. Like it was a lot of it was shot down as false against the people that accused Michael Jackson. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. I mean, you probably know more about it on that aspect. I just know that those people were trying to sue him and get money. And I know there's people out there that accuse people of rape and it's false, accuse people of murder and it's false. They lied for whatever reason, money, greed, uh, want to see the guy get in trouble or the girl get in trouble. So for me, it's really hard, Trey. Like unless like there's like ample evidence, I'm gonna be like, I need to see more because like let's say for matter of fact, you have a wife, Trey, right? You have a wife and she says that you dotted her up in the eye, right? And I'd be like, man, I don't think Trey would do that. But then she divorces you, and your next three, four girlfriends, they all say that you dotted them up. Well, probably you're dotting them up. But how they say a tiger doesn't, or a leopard doesn't change their spots, like I mean, that's true mainly. So I guess what I was saying is like, but if the girl you were dating said you dotted her up, but she has no bruises, and then you have three, four girls after that that you dated, and they never say you did anything physical, that chick was probably lying. And even if you say, or the guy, oh, she cheated on me, but the girl never cheated on him with anyone else. I need more proof, I guess, is what I'm saying, Trey, if that makes sense. Like I need like with like Bill Cosby, there is a lot of people or a lot of women saying it. So yeah, and it sucks because there might be just one time they did it and then are like, "Damn, I don't want to ever do that again. I should never raped her or like beat her." And then people are like, "That woman's a liar. He's a celebrity." I mean, and a lot of people keep things under wraps. Trey, look at P Diddy, right? Would I have been invited to the P Diddy parties when I was 19, bro? Just saying.
Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a thing for sure. And I mean, we're talking about obviously the most extreme examples, right? We're talking about, assault, pedophilia, stuff like that. Now, what do you think if it's like on a much smaller scale, right? So, like, for example, like, Do you think that it's right in the Eminem situation? And I'm just throwing this out there where it's on a much less scale to where, Eminem comes up, he's rapping with a bunch of his like white friends, and he blows up, gets big, and his friends are back wherever they're at, and so they feel disrespected, and they remember that they recorded a song of him a song of him talking about black women and saying how they just want their money and that they're dumb and all that. So like what do you think about a situation like that? Do you think that even if it's not something to that extreme, and they feel like they've kind of been slighted, and then they try to go about it a different way that doesn't really ruin their life necessarily, but it's just kind of might knock them down a peg or something like that?
I think they're both wrong, Trey. I'll say it that way. If, for example, I say a slur, right, to you, and you record it on me, and then I blow up, and then you release it like a couple years later because I don't talk to you, but we didn't have any issues, right? I just blew up because I don't know if there's issues with him and those white guys. Like I don't know that. I know what you're talking about, like the whole song or whatever. I do know the background on that. Um, but I say a slur, right? Like um, whatever you want to say, racial, homophobic, making fun of mentally ill people, making fun of mentally challenged people, whatever you want to say, and you record it. Why are you recording me, for one? Or why are you releasing it if it's never been released before? So right there, you are kind of hating, right? You're kind of hating on the person that I thought that we were cool with. But then I'm wrong for doing it at the same time. But I mean, I don't know. It's also like I don't want to get into all this because you'll ruffle feathers. But like, if you call me a dumbass white boy, right? I'm not going to get offended. If you call me a dumbass cracker, I'm still not going to get offended. So to me, it is what it is. Like I don't really get offended easy from like name calling. I get more offended for like my family and friends. So like for me to answer your question, I think they're both wrong. Like Eminem was obviously wrong. I don't know. I don't remember the lyrics exactly. If he said like all black women or some black women, I still think it's hating by his friends. And then at the same time, it depends how he said it for me as a whole. Because if like I have buddies that they're black, and if they dated a white girl and they're like made a song and they're like, man, that white girl was trash. She was a hoe. Man, we are R-rated today, Trey. That white girl's trash. She's a hoe. I wouldn't get mad, dude. I wouldn't even care because I know him. Do I think that the black friend of mine who said that is racist? No. I just think that sometimes people get described, right? Now, if he said all black women are evil, yeah, that's totally wrong by Eminem then. But it's still crazy that his friends leaked it at the same time.
Yeah, well, I mean that whole thing. I mean, that's what sparked the whole feud between him and Benzino back in the day was because his white friends, Benzino ended up, buying the tapes from him, and then he leaked it to the Source magazine, which the Source magazine was considered the Bible of hip hop back then, with him and Dave Mays, and that kind of started the whole feud between that. So, I mean, like, you can pretty much look at the whole situation objectively, not even just like biased or whatever, but you can just look at that situation objectively and say that Benzino was just jealous of his success and all that, and kind of had a grudge against him. But you know, since we're talking about this, and I want to get your opinion on specific cases, we're going all over the place. So we're talking about assault. We talked about Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, but I want to ask your opinion, Shane. What's your opinion on your guy? Well, both of our guys. We're both Tupac fans, and you probably like. I think we both have the knowledge. Did you see the interview that the woman did on Vlad TV? all those years back, and what's your thoughts on that whole thing? That
Um, here's my thing. I don't think he did it, and people are gonna be like, "Of course you didn't think he did it. You're a Tupac stan." No, I really don't think he did it. Um, do I think he might have been afraid of the guys a little bit that he was with that did it? Possibly, possibly. People would be like, "Yeah, but how was he afraid, bro? He shot two off-duty cops. He called out New York drug kingpins and New York killers out on records, and he would get in fistfights with gang members, which he did in '94, the Chicago gang. He did another one where the 6-year-old was left killed, but he can still feel uncomfortable. Maybe not afraid. That might be where I said he's slightly afraid. Maybe he was uncomfortable with the situation, right? And you know, for me, I mean, it's a little hard because he never got in trouble for rape. He got in trouble for forcibly touching the buttocks without consent. Well, okay, so for me, here's the thing. A girl and I meet at the club, right? The girl gives me oral sex. A couple of days later, she calls me up. She wants to come to my hotel. We have sex. Then the next day, she wants to see me again. I'm with my boys, right? I'm with like some guys that I think are my boys, but they're like they're major gangsters. Like just like they're major gangsters. Like if anybody wants to look up Jimmy Henchman, Haitian Jack, go look them up, okay? Um, so let's just say I'm hanging out with them. I'm smoking weed. I'm pretty high. I drank a little bit. She comes into my hotel room. I don't really want sex. I tell her to give me a massage. Some of the dudes come into the hotel room. They were already in the hotel room, but they come in the bedroom and they're like, "Damn, that girl has a fine butt. Like, look at how big her butt is." I'm gonna be uncomfortable as hell, bro. I'm comfortable in myself by fighting. Just I'm comfortable by handling business, even if I lose. But I'd be uncomfortable, right? Because these are supposedly my friends, and then there's this girl I'm messing with, and I know like damn like these guys are also major gangsters, major drug kingpins, yada yada. They put hits out on people factually. I mean, I'm not snitching on anyone. Well, A, I'm not a gangster, but B, you can look it up. I mean, they do their own videos now anyways. So anyways, and I'm like, hell yeah, and I grab her butt and she kind of moves away because she's uncomfortable by the whole situation as well. And then she's like, kick out all these guys. And I'm like, I can't tell my boys what to do. They're here with me. And then she gets mad at me. And I'm like, I can't deal with this right now. And I leave and I go to a different room and fall asleep. And then I wake up and she's claiming rape. I get arrested. There's no proof that I had intercourse with her or forcible rape during that time. So she's lying on that. So they get me with touching her butt without consent, right? Then I also find out that the dude that was going to get the same rape case or same rape sentence as me gets nothing, Trey. And we find out later he's an FBI informant. And then we find out that the girl has hung around these people before. Then I call him out and say, yo, this is what happened to that interview. If you ever watch his interview, it's like a day before or a couple days before where he just basically explains that there's no semen. The only time we had sex, I used a condom. Um, I shouldn't have touched her butt and I shouldn't have left her with those guys. These guys, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of said it, but he didn't say names. And then the next day he got shot up because Jimmy Henchman wanted to be like, man, you have a big mouth, shut your mouth. They were going to rob him, supposedly. I don't really believe that. I think they were going to rob and shoot him anyways, but he fought back, and they said that's why they shot him, Trey. So I guess my question to you is this, right? So there is no forcible rape by him. There is no tearing of the vaginal entry point. Like, I hate to say that, but like, there's no tear, like forcible rape. And she claimed that I raped her. And then you find out that there's nothing like that that happened. Like with Kobe Bryant, it's different. It looks like that there was forcible rape entry, and he tries to say that's because he was having rough sex with her, and she was just a hoe. Okay, but with Tupac, there's nothing like that. So they got him with touching the buttocks without consent. You know how easy, Trey, that is to get somebody in trouble? I'm just being honest. And then it's hard because if a girl's on top of you and yeah, and you have these friends that are like killers in the room with you, and they're talking about how her butt looks and all that is nice, and you're like uncomfortable because these are your boys, you know what they're capable of, and this girl is just a groupie, and you grab her butt and she moves away and shows that she's uncomfortable, and you get upset and leave. Did you really rape her, Trey? Or were you wrong by leaving the situation, which he says that he would wishes he could handle that differently, and told them to leave? I mean, what's your opinion on that? Do you believe that? Because there is no point. He didn't rape her. There was no DNA of that or forcible entry like that. It was they got him for forcible, I believe, forcible buttocks touching or something like that. I will look it up right now. But what's your thought on that?
Yeah, yeah, right. And it's like so basically from what I'm gathering about this is he didn't do anything, but if you wanted to accuse him of looking the other way kind of a thing, then maybe that's kind of more accurate, but and I'll ask you this though, so if he knew that the guys he was with were kind of up to no good, but he didn't really deal with it, and he just kind of walked away and didn't really do much. Isn't that like kind of what why this whole thing kind of got blown out in the end? I mean, you have the death that comes out. I mean, now it's kind of moving forward, I guess. But I mean, you look at how it ended. If Suge Knight were to talk to the cops and say, "Yeah, I've seen such and such. I seen Keefy D in the car, and I played football with him back in high school." This whole thing would have gotten solved pretty early. I mean, so do you think that Tupac was wrong for kind of just looking the other way and not really like going? He should have done more on that aspect of things. But
So, so I did look it up. He got charged with forcibly touching the buttocks without her consent. It went from being a rape case to forcible touching the buttocks or whatever. So like, which is crazy. Like it's crazy. Like it's a little different to me. Like if I'm out in the club, right? Like, and my wife, dude, when we were young, she'd get her butt grabbed a lot in a club, Trey, or a bar. They would sneak through the crowd where it's so crowded, reach and grab her butt and just bounce into the crowd, and you couldn't even see who did it. No lie. If you got caught there, hell yeah, you put you in jail for sexual assault and forcibly touching the butt. And for me, it's like really hard, and I'd say I'd say it about like if it was reversed. Like if I went down on a girl and then I went to her hotel and I had sex with her and then I went into her hotel room and there's some gangsters in there and or tough guys or however you want to say it, and you were like she was like, "Yo, these are my friends, don't worry about it." And then I was like uncomfortable and she like grabbed my junk touching it, and then I leave because I'm uncomfortable, or I tell her like nah, and she gets mad at me and leaves, and then whatever they like grab me. I don't know. That's the wrong thing because it'd have to be girls. But anyways, it doesn't matter. My whole point is like that'd be tough for me to like say that like she touched me without consent when I went to the hotel room to sleep with her again. I think he was definitely wrong for leaving her in that situation. I think he was uncomfortable. I think he knew what these guys were up to. I think he knew what these guys were capable of, and he was just completely uncomfortable. He could have definitely handled it better. Um, and then 2 years later he gets killed because he bought a Crip. And like a lot of them say that he screwed up. He wasn't like the Bloods that were around there. Suge screwed up. Suge should have never let Tupac around that situation. It had nothing to do with like some people were like, oh, he became a Blood at 25. He wasn't a Blood. He wasn't a Blood. He wasn't a Crip. The problem was he was loyal to a fault. So he saw the Crip, which was Orlando Anderson from the South Side, but they had been stealing death row chains. They've been robbing Bloods of the death row chain. So he saw him. He said, "Hey, is that dude from blah blah blah?" One of the Bloods said, "Yeah," and you can see it in the video. He hurries up, and then the fight happens. He should have never been around that situation. So, like right there, he handled it with aggression. With in the hotel, he kind of bounced. And is it because he was by himself, Trey? I mean, I don't know. Like he shot two police officers off duty that were harassing or doing whatever to a civilian. Um, so he was by himself there. He had his gun. Now, I don't know. He should have handled it better, Trey. That's just my opinion. But do I think he's a rapist? No. I mean, he's not. At worst, he grabbed the butt inappropriately.
Yeah, there's because I've been to like concerts. I never like went clubbing or anything like that, but I've been at concerts and I never did this, but I've definitely seen guys kind of my age, like 20, 27, and like maybe it's just kind of how it is. Like maybe that's just kind of the scene. But I've seen guys that don't even know the woman, but they'll like kind of approach her from behind and try to like try to like engage her and like dance it. And I just look at this like if you want to like get a girl to dance with you, like just ask her to dance. Like don't like try to come up behind her and do that stuff. But no, I definitely understand what you were saying about how your wife would like be at a club or whatever and stuff like that. But no, that's crazy. I mean, and when you look at this situation, I mean, is it out of pocket for me to make the claim that if this whole situation with Tupac never happened, like if he never goes to prison, then maybe he doesn't get involved with Suge Knight and he's still alive to this day. I mean, is that out of pocket for me to say that?
No, no, it's just unfortunately things happen, and whatever you want to believe in life, if your life is pre-written from the day you were born, if it's like the Goosebump books where, or not the books, but what would you do books or whatever, where you had options, you pick option A, oh, you did this, or you picked option B and something bad happened. However you want to believe it, like in life, I think it just happens. No, I don't think you're wrong. I think that if he never messed around with the New York kingpins that were drug dealers and gangsters and all that, he wouldn't have been around them. Well, the girl probably would have came to the hotel. They probably would have just had sex, right? Or he was too tired that night. They would have like just hung out in the hotel room. So he probably wouldn't have went to jail. He probably would have been still cool with Biggie, right? He probably would still been cool with Biggie. And then I think he'd probably still be alive. I think he'd probably, in my opinion, be an activist and a more movie guy than he wouldn't. I don't think he'd rap anymore. I think he'd be like an activist and a movie person. So I personally think that yeah, you're not out of pocket. I think that he would have been still alive if he didn't end up going to jail.
All right, you heard it here first, and this whole tangent was made possible due to Aaron Hernandez and Shane thinking that I didn't know who Aaron Hernandez was. Yeah, this is why I love the podcast. Though we just go off on tangents, you never know where it's gonna go and all that. So that's awesome. But Shane, the one question that I did want to ask you is you've been playing some pretty big names as of late. So there was one game where you played Bugs. That was a good game. I was there for that. And not too long ago, you ended up playing Dubby, who's a very prominent figure, obviously one of the better players in Madden. I mean, it's kind of crazy though. You talk about like the top Madden players, and the two top Madden players that you played are both kind of your age. So it's almost like you guys are like the pro grandpas playing Madden over there, because like you're all kind of in your 30s. So I always thought that was crazy. But the thing I want to ask you is like between the Bugs and Dubby game, which one of those two would you say is the more tougher opponent that you could tell? And you know that and like yeah, we'll just go from there. Actually, I'll just ask you that. Which one of those two would you say is the toughest you played?
Um, so it is funny. I'm gonna say W's tougher matchup for me. I couldn't stop his offense. Now maybe it goes year to year. I mean, that's the first time I've ever in my life played W, and it's my first time I ever played Bugs. Um, maybe maybe it'll change. I'd have to get more games in between them. But I think W's better than Bugs. At least for me. I feel like Bugs was slightly better. Bugs was better on defense, but his offense, like he's predictable. I couldn't stop him no matter what. And I consider myself a pretty darn good Madden player on defense and user. I mean, I think I had one pick six, but his defense, he left a lot. He left a lot on the plate. Like, I mean, I think I ran for 235 yards on him. I mean, I think I ran for a bunch on Bugs as well, but not nearly that amount. And for me, matchup wise, I don't know how they have record wise head to head between him and Bugs, W versus Bugs, but I would say that W is my tougher matchup. Just like even when Serious Mo was the top Madden player beating Skimbo, Skimbo was a tougher Madden player than Serious Mo. I beat Serious Mo, 4 of the 5 times I ever faced him. I think I'm like 0 and 4 or 0 and 5 against Skimbo. So matchups definitely are a big thing, but I would assume that W's overall the better player than Bugs. But yeah, I mean it was really interesting. I think I lost 13-8, and I think a play happened in that game where I legitly got cheated. I felt like, but it happens, right, Trey? It happens. So I felt cheated, but he could have felt cheated about something else. So it is what it is. Um, I lost. I think it was 13-8, and then versus W, I lost 35-29. So I my stress meter was way higher versus W, not because of who it is. Like I don't really give an F on who I play. I actually feel like I lock in better, Trey. You can have your opinion on this or not. That I feel like I lock in better against the bigger names than just some random that I'm playing. It was more that W put more stress on my brain because I knew my offense is not A plus gifted against other top pros, right? And I couldn't stop him enough. I feel like if I could stop him, he would have been in trouble because he couldn't stop a run. He was gonna have to start run committing. Um, so like if I had to be honest, like, oh hey, on a 1 to 10, how tough was Bugs for you? I'd say a 7.5, 8 for that just one game because we're talking about one game. 7.5 out of 8, and W was a 10 out of 10.
Right, got you. And you talk about playing Madden, and obviously you've played a lot of the top competitors in Madden. And so I want to make a comparison. So like if you were to play one-on-one basketball against, a guy that's pretty good at basketball, right? And then so you go from the guy that's pretty good on basketball and then all of a sudden you play a game one-on-one against like a legit like basketball player that does it for a living. It could be the NBA, it could be G League. It doesn't really matter. So when it comes to Madden, like, is the distinction from playing someone like that runs the meta, that watches like the tip videos and all that? Is there that much of a distinction from someone that just watches the meta and like implements it versus the guys that create the meta and like run it? Is there that much of a distinction between the pretenders and the people that actually do it, that like do it professionally?
Um, no, I mean, not really, Trey. Honestly, not really, because I faced some guys that ran the. And what's up, Rose? You're good. I appreciate you being here. We always do, Trey and I. Um, I don't think so as much as people think. I think the main difference is maybe adjusting. I've played guys that were. I'm doing this like fingers in the air, Trey. So like nobodies that ran the meta as good as any pro I've played, but the difference is once I figured out their 2-3 meta plays, they couldn't adjust, they couldn't figure it out, they couldn't do any of that stuff. So for me, it's if you had to make a I think the main difference is the adjustment. That's it. I think everything else is the same. I've watched the pros play the whole A gap blitz. They look the same as the people that aren't pros. The only difference I notice is they kind of adjust better and they remember kind of the plays more. But there's a lot of people that I think are really good that it's not that big of a difference like people think. I think more they get nervous, right? So like when I used to do money games, Trey, and I did MCS a while ago, I would have people be afraid. I had a couple people DM me after and be like, "I knew who you were. I was scared. I was scared. I thought that you were gonna kill me." And I was in my head. I'm like, "Damn, they were actually pretty good. I'm surprised. I'm surprised they were they were scared because they were good. But a lot of that, honestly, is I think it goes adjusting, like Rose said right now. She said, "Yep, they know what you're gonna do." She agreed with that. And also, I think the name. I think there's a lot of people out there that are really, really good, Trey. Like really, really good. That aren't big pro names, but they face a pro and they crumble. That's kind of like like when I would lose to them in MUT, and then I'd say, "Let's play for money," and I'd smoke them because they got nervous. I think a lot of it is they are very good at adjusting their users, whatever. I'm being honest. Like I'm not trying to be rude here, but their users are basically whatever to me. And then also it's just their name helps them, and they have the best cards, the best players, and then they know everything inside and out about the meta. Because we're talking about the meta where everybody knows everything, right? Just not when it's popping out. So once everybody knows everything, I think it's really Trey. I've been repeating myself, but adjusting and then their name kind of gives people the shakes.
Yeah, and since Rose is in here, you missed pretty entertaining discourse. Basically, you go back and listen to it. Shane thought that I didn't know who Aaron Hernandez was. And since Rose is in the chat, I'm gonna ask the question that I asked Shane. So, Rose, I want to ask you, who do you think is going to be shown more at the Super Bowl? Is it going to be Are they going to show Taylor Swift more, or do you think they're going to show Donald Trump more? Is what I want to ask Rose if she's still here. But Shane, so you're from what you're saying is that it's all about adjusting, right? You can have the foundation, and I guess the foundation would be the meta, but then from there it's all about adjusting. So doesn't it seem kind of like a scam in a way, like when people are I guess, saying, oh, I'm the best, and, they drop all these tip videos and drop in ebooks and stuff. Do you think that they're kind of misleading people when they do drop these ebooks? If it's like you said, like you can learn the meta, but then at the end of the day, it's kind of, all about adjusting.
Um, like Rose made a good point about where like there's people that can beat people that have better cards, and they have the worst cards, and they beat people that have the better cards for sure. Rose, I've definitely done it. I've definitely done it enough for sure, and I'm not like the top 1% of the 1%, right? But definitely, um, you can beat somebody who has a better team when you have a worse team if you're better than them. But there's a point that you have to be much better than them with the lower team. Like if I have an 86 overall team and you have a 94, I have to be much better than you. If you have a 94 team and I have a 91 team, I can beat you if I'm better, for sure. But the problem is, Rose, is like we're just speaking strictly from a pro versus pro standpoint. You definitely, that's why they all have the best cards, right? Because it matters. Don't let any of them tell you different. They all need the best cards, and that's why they use them. And it's also like a little close knit community, even though they talk trash about each other. The top players out of that top Madden community want to they want to keep it all in house. Like I've told this story numerous times about basically the pro players root against each other when it was crew versus crew, but when it was a new person trying to break through, the pros band together and rooted for the pro to beat the newbie. So that's why in my opinion they all know who the best players are, who to use, what abilities, and all that stuff because they know that. Rose said Taylor definitely NFL wants to sell their superstar status, and because she's dating a Super Bowler. Um, people will psych. She says people will also psych themselves out of a great team won't win. I agree with that. I agree with that. I've had people quit because my team was good and they didn't want to deal with it. Um, now I will say I completely suck against pre-lit Omaha and film study pre-lit Rose and Trey. And to me, those people that I lost to would not have beat me if they didn't have that on. I can't afford the pre-lit Omaha and pre-lit film study right now. So to me, yeah, it definitely makes a difference. But to answer your question, no, they're dumb as hell, Rose. It makes me want to bang my head against the TV 42 times until I'm brain damaged. Um, no, to answer your question, Trey, like I am just on one. I apologize. I'm just rambling on. To answer your question, you do need to know stuff. Definitely need to know stuff. So, like the YouTube videos, the ebooks, it definitely helps because it is a knowledge based game. It shows. A lot of the users by the pros suck. There's only a full handful in my hand. Like, there's a handful that I'm like, damn, you know what? Their user is pretty damn good. Like, I give them credit. Most of them are average to sub average to me. They use their knowledge of the game, and then they adjust very well. And then they have the top team, so it all plays together. Trey, right? It all plays together. Um, like just look at it here. I'll say this: like the meta blitzes came out this year. I had no idea how to block them. Right, I was struggling for a couple weeks. The UMC crew, they helped me figure out how to block the blitzes, and guess what happened? All of a sudden, I can pass against it, or I have time to pass against it. I wasn't getting screamed at. Then guess what I've been doing lately? I figured out how to run against it. I figured out certain plays that can run against it. I will say this: if you can find, and this is for anyone out there, if you can find an off meta formation that cooks the meta formation, you will go a long way. You might even win a belt. And I'm not even joking you because there have been people who have won or got deep when they have an off meta because they haven't seen it, and then they'll be called bubblegum. But then, it is what it is, because I really don't care what they have to say, because I was called bubblegum, and then the same person who called me bubblegum is running the bubblegum stuff now. So I will say it is all about this. No, facts, Rose. It's no casual player knows how to ID the outside corner opposite. Yeah, no, it's true. You know what would make sense, though, Rose? Trey, what do I always complain about, man? What do they need to bring back? Pinch what?
Pinch what? Pinch protection.
That would take away everything. It would take away the A gap blitz. It'd take away the crossfire blitz. Then it'd be chess, not checkers. Then if you blitz me on the outside and I pick pinch protection, I should get screamed at. Bring back pinch protection. So there's my ramble on.
I had a dream the other day that EA brought back pinch protection, but then someone pinched me because I was dreaming. That joke probably went over your head on that one. You have to think about it for a while. But no, with all that being said, and it's like me, for example, I'm not a big, user of the blitz. My whole thing is when I'm on defense is I like to sit back because if I'm not worried about a blitz, then that allows me to see the offense and to see kind of what the routes and the stuff that they're doing on offense, and then I can kind of adjust off of that. And I just feel like if you have like a good blitz, and no matter how good the blitz is, if it gets picked up, then I feel like if it gets figured out, that it's kind of like you might as well not have even took spent the time to even got the blitz because now you have to adjust behind it and it's like completely useless now. And then especially if you have a good blitz, but then someone just runs on it and you're giving up like 10 to 20 yards off of the run, then it's like to me it's kind of pointless. But I would say for anyone that's trying to be good at Madden, number one, obviously, watch Shane Got You 11 on YouTube. Watch his tip videos there. But then number two is don't watch any of the other pros on YouTube, right? The number one thing you want to do, and who am I? I haven't won anything in Madden. I understand that, but I'm still pretty good, and you're not, so I'm giving you advice. But number two is that you want to know what the buttons do, learn what base align means, know the difference between what a cloud flat and a hard flat is, know when to man people up, know the routes, and just know the basic stuff. And then from there, just make adjustments because if you're just kind of riding off of one good play or one good blitz, you're going to adjust and you'll be dead. But if you know all the adjustments, then like Shane said, you're playing chess and you can adjust off of that point. So that's kind of my thing. I know I suck on Madden, but I've also been playing it for long, and that's kind of what my whole spin is on that. But going off of that, Shane, what was your opinion on the Madden Bowl, and more specifically, our guy, the guy that you've had problems with in the past? You dealt with him online over a number of years. Young Kiv, he was obviously very upset in his game. He almost cried. It was not a good look. He was frustrated because he gave up an onside kick and he ended up losing. But, not even with like the whole Young Kiv situation, but what's your take on the Madden Bowl so far?
Rose said you're humble brag, Trey. LOL. Nah, man. I mean, Kiv is who Kiv is gonna be, right? I mean, it's obvious like how he said, "You just so trash, you effing suck." Like, that's wild to say. That's wild. He channeled his inner chaos. Yeah, I mean, kind of, Rose, but like, I mean, most people like, I don't want to get into the whole semantics and all that stuff, but people outside of Madden, outside playing the game, say Chaos is a nice guy. The other guy, it depends on who you are. The Madden Bowl is cool, Trey. Like, I like watching it. off and on. It's just a lot of the same, man. You're gonna get crossfire, or you're gonna get 6-1, or you're gonna get dollar A gap, and then they get mad if you run on them when you're in dollar. If you figure out how to run on their dollar and you run on it, they call you a bot. Like, like Bugs was calling me a bot, and he could have stopped me if he really wanted to. But we're in Gauntlet, so he wanted to win because you get massive coins. So no, he really couldn't. He was just trying to defend his ego because I'm a nobody to him. So to me, like, I don't know, man. I understand why people get bored that are just normal people. They don't care, like, for the MCS. They're just normal people wanting to watch the top players. Like I said, when I've watched, I see people that are just normal players be like, it's boring to see Bunch every play. It's boring to see Dollar every play. And then you got the pro players being like, yeah, but that's because we adjust behind it. But if there was weak box still and I was running on it and they were getting flatlined, they'd have to adjust to a different formation. There's no way that, like, if I go under center, you should run 6-1, and when I go to hand the ball off, you sack my QB because of the offensive line logic. So I don't know, Trey. It is what it is. Like, he's who he is. A lot of these pros are who they are. A lot of them are only nice if they beat you. If they're in a tight game with you, you're trash. If you beat them, they rage even more. There's very few just legit cool guys out there that are just cool. And yes, sometimes I have been wrong. I mean, I'm not perfect either. But on a stage like that, I would have been more professional, and I'm being honest. Like, we're talking about strictly after the game. During the game, if it's trash talking, I'm probably trash talking about, like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, right. Then stop me. I'd say that. But after the game, I wouldn't have stood up and do that. I would have said good game, shook his hand, and left and walked off stage because that's professionalism. Now, if he wants to talk trash after the game off the stage where we're not being professionals anymore, yeah, I might tell him he sucks. But on stage, you should have some sort of professionalism. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then not only do you have to deal with like the crossfire, but then you have to listen to the commentary. You gotta listen to Nick Masesco. I can't do obviously if you hear my voice, I can't do the high pitched voice that he does, but you gotta hear. So TD, in this situation, you're down 4 points, and your opponent is running gun bunch. What are some of the ways that you're able to defend it? And you hear TD. Well, Nick, in this situation, I would press my corners. I would shade over top because there's a glitch that if you shade over the top, the guy runs quicker. And I really like these route combinations from Young Kiv, even though we've seen the same route combinations the past 24 out of the 28 plays on offense. But I think Nick, in this situation, he's going to perform it the best out of this, and it's just tiring at this point. But the whole onside kick thing though is dumb, and I think that because I mean like in some of the glitches like they're tough to stop, but at least with those for the most part you're able to do something that combats it. But with the onside kick, there's literally nothing you can do. Like if you're on the other side and the guy knows how to recover an onside kick, you're kind of screwed for the most part. So Shane, do you think that they should start to look into if it's like if you're losing in the fourth quarter and you have to do an onside kick, maybe a new rule should be to do like a thing where like you punt it to them and you have one play to get like a 4th and 20 situation. Do you think that that would be a good rule to implement? And we don't know if like onside kicks are going to be patched or whatever, but to me, I think that would be a good thing because in that regard, and I completely agree with you about Kidd being a crybaby or whatever, but I mean that whole onside kick thing, I think to me is kind of garbage. So
I mean, the onside kick stuff is kind of garbage, but in the same time, bro, to me, it's just like you deal with everything else you deal with, right? I mean, to be fair, earlier in the year, they had a kickoff glitch that Kiv would use against people. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? And the funny thing is, there was a kickoff onsides glitch earlier in the year that I knew how to stop. So I think there's certain ways that you can stop certain things. Like I think I used like strong like hands team, and then on the one where it was high, you can use like I don't remember what it was, like strong or whatever. There's just different formations, but yes, overall it kind of sucks. Um so I mean, I don't know how they'd fix that. Like I know what you mean though, because if somebody knows how to onsides kick it, sometimes it is so glitchy that you're screwed. Rose said that Vose said that her friend played him, went strike for strike, blah blah blah. Ended up losing. He said hi after the stream. Yeah, I mean, sometimes like it depends on what Vose you get, Rose. I'm just gonna be honest. Like sometimes he's super nice, sometimes he'll get irritable, but he is turning a corner in my humble opinion and being better. I think he's turning a corner where he's probably being nicer because you can really make this thing a job, a professional job. Like they need to learn that that's what they're doing, and I don't think certain people care. Um, but yeah, there's nice people. There's nice pros out there. I never said that there wasn't nice pros. It just depends on who you get. So, I mean, I've literally dealt with two two of the three pros I've watched just talk mad crap about people because they didn't like that they ran the ball so much, you know.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, and the onside kick thing, I mean, I get it. Like, there's not much you can do. You gotta win the game eventually. You know you're down a possession. It's the only way that you can get the ball back, and it's for money. Okay, fine, whatever. But I mean, if you're doing kickoff glitches like the one kickoff glitch where like you would kick it kind of short of the landing zone and then you'd get the ball back. If you do that, then you have no life. Like, there's a lot of other things that I want to say about people like that, but I'm just gonna keep it at that. You have no life. You've never went outside a day in your
Hey
life.
Trey,
Like,
can you hear
if
me?
you're like one of those people, like just go out and touch grass or something.
No, I agree. I agree. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So like Rose said, like they get their earnings, they're dependent, they don't like losing from cheap stuff. Now here's my thing. I'm gonna spin it for both of you guys. I want both of you guys to answer me on this. Give did it to people too. All the pros did the cheap little kickoff glitch that you're talking about, Trey. Like the whatever the zone landing. I watched them on stream. They did it to everybody. So they're only mad when it happens to them. Just like when Kiv went online on Twitter and said adjust to the one pro, and they got mad when the pro did it to him. Later on, and got mad and went all over Twitter. My issue with it, Rose, like I understand about the cheap stuff and all that stuff. My only issue with it is why is it cool for them to do it to you, but um it's not for when it happens to them? Oh wow, it's the Trey show. All right, Trey, we're gonna have to talk, bro. I'm joking,
Joking.
but you know what I
But you
mean,
know what
though.
I
Like how come it's
How come
okay
it's
for them to do it to you, but it's not okay for you to do it to them?
Yeah, no, it's definitely no different. I mean that's kind of what you said. I mean, Shane, I don't know if you remember, but the last time we were on this podcast and we were going down memory lane, you were telling me about the time where you went down to Vegas to have that tournament, and you said that there was a situation where basically you were playing the guy and there was a rule, and there's background going. So sorry, Rose. I know you didn't like that last time, but you'll have to deal with it for a while. But there was a situation where the rules say that if there's someone behind you, you can't say, "Hey, B is open. Hey, square is open." Well, you didn't do it to them, but then the other guy did it. The other guy listened to another guy that said, "Oh, square is open," but you didn't say anything. But when your brother did the same thing, he freaked out about it. And like I think at the time you were just kind of like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. You just kind of went on. Where like if it were to happen now, you probably would have made a bigger deal about it. And it's just kind of funny because, like, if you look back on that situation, I mean, that guy probably doesn't even play Madden anymore. He's probably working a 9 to 5 or whatever. But something about Madden, like, why is it like whenever people play Madden, they're just like they have no integrity? And like, I just thought it was funny because like a situation like that should have given you a clue of what to expect in the future. Because it's like, people want to say, oh, I got cheated, oh, this guy shouldn't have did this, but they won't hesitate to do the same thing for you. And I think for me, like, yeah, like I don't feel bad if I cheat you, like, because I know you're gonna do it to me. So that's kind of like how I am on that. But yeah, no, to answer your question, Shane, I just think that that's how the community is, and I think that to an extent, that's how it's always been. So,
Yeah, it's Trey's. Yo, she's making jokes about we're gonna get to Mars with your exhaust. No, man. I think the reason why you see how toxic how toxic it is because you see them one on one for what they are when things aren't going their way. If you work a 9 to 5 job, I dealt with people who would rat on other people. I dealt with people who would gossip about other people. I've worked with people that were really cool. So I think that you're getting the people that play video games who think they're better than you, and they struggle with it. And yes, it does come to a point of the 1% that, it's just like an NBA. Some people have that killer instinct where they're not friends with anybody. But my issue is that they're constantly like, I mean, most of this community has issues with all this. They like to do it to you, but they like, just like I said, I'll use Space Jam. I'm gonna throw Space Jam under the bus. It is what it is. No, it is cold out, Rose, for sure. Trey, it is cold out here. No, it's basically, Space Jam got mad when I ran all over him, but then like a month later, like 4 or 5 years ago, he was running the ball 24/7. And then he said, "Oh well, people need to stop it when somebody got mad at him." So it really doesn't matter. It's more they get mad when they can't stop it. So if Kiv would have onsides did on him, he would have laughed and celebrated.
yeah, and like even me, like Madden 20, I was probably the biggest degenerate there was. Like, I look back on that game, I was running rollout corners. Like, if you play Madden 20, basically you use escape artist, you escape the pocket, and you could throw a corner out because the zones would always come down. You can just throw it over top, and that's kind of what brought out the whole zone drop feature in Madden 21. And I don't even think you can really do that anymore. But and cover three beaters were back then. If you had like a comeback and a post on one side, the deep third would always stick to the comeback. You could just throw the post for like a one play touchdown. So I was a degenerate, but I always knew, like, at least with that, there was a way to stop it. Like, if you wanted to stop the cover three beater, you would just put your corner in a deep half, which I tried to tell Shane, and he never listened to me. So there's that. But so you could do that, but there's ways to stop it. But if when it comes to like, even if it's like blocking a kick or like, doing an onside kick or like the landing zone glitch, like I never like it's never been that serious to me where like I wanted to do something like that or like try to disconnect the game just to get a free win. Like at that point, it's just kind of it's not really that serious to me. So like when it comes to that side of things, it's kind of whatever. But at the same time, I mean, you do have a good point. It's like in one breath they'll say, "Well, but we'll have a counter to it," but if they but they'll still run it, and you get what I'm trying to say. It's like the whole thing that Drini said a while back. He says that if you can run it, then you'll tell everyone else to find a counter to it. But if you can't stop it, then all of a sudden EA and say, oh, this needs to be patched, this and that. So that's kind of my whole takeaway on that, Shane. But I guess going off of that is like, do you think that when you play the Gauntlet, because that's where you played Bugs and Dubby, so where are you at with the Gauntlet? Are you liking the fact that you're matching up against these players?
Well, first off, Rose, yeah, it could be a skill issue for me. I might be just trash. But no, Trey, I think it's the best thing they did almost. Like you got mutt champs, right, where you might play good players, but you're not gonna be thrown in with a bunch of top pros. There's a lot of top pros in there. It's a gauntlet for a reason. I will definitely be if they keep it, I will be definitely doing it day one next year because I love it. I think iron sharpens iron. I will see how they do. I will see how they adjust. Like honestly, like I don't feel like I'm that far off, even though obviously like you could be like, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, but like losing by a combined 11 points to two top 40 players, that's not bad at all. So it shows that I'm not that far off. So hopefully I'll continue working. I'll do the gauntlet next year. I love the gauntlet, bro. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, yeah. Another question that I have for you is that it seems like you've been pretty heavy on because I know obviously you like to tote the rock, and it seems like you've been pretty big on the refrigerator William Perry at your running back position, and I always think that like for like people that like to run the ball, I think they usually go for like the more speedy guys like a CJ2K or Barry Sanders, so. I want to ask you, like, what do you see in William Perry to where, you keep using him at the ball? Is it because you like the power that he brings to you, or is it like a good solid mix of like speed and power, or is it because like you've tested all the other running backs and they didn't really have like were really your cup of tea, so to speak?
So that's a really good question, Trey. So here's where I'm at. So I use tank on William Perry. So if they try to hit stick me, they bounce off. Well, they set a lot of the things that I've noticed is a lot of the he's a fat man that can't be talked to. I his strength is like 97, I believe, Trey. And so what it does for me is like I use I use Jam- I use Jamal Lewis, right? And I tried him and I didn't like him, bro. Like I didn't like him at all. I thought he kind of sucked because he wouldn't break the tackles as much. Like I think Rose was in the stream when I tried him and he just didn't break tackles even though he has good break tackles and he had tank on him. He didn't feel the same way. William Perry's strength and he has good enough speed. Like he's not the fastest out there anymore, but like he just breaks tackles, bro. And with tank on there, people have aggressive on or they have like, the avalanche and they bounce off of it, a lot of it. And so for me, like I might go that next year because if you're coming out in taller, all it took like when I played Bugs is a bounce off one or like where I did it with against W the same thing. So like yeah, the tank is really good, but his strength is like in 97 and he's huge like Rose said and he's fast enough.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point about how you were saying dollar because, like a lot of them have like defensive backs and like, safeties at the linebacker position. So I think if you're able to get tank, like you said, and you're able to kind of hit the gap, like, even though the offensive linemen theoretically they should be able to get pancaked, but if you have like a stronger running back and you're able to truck one, then it's going to take like at least two to three to really get them down to the ground. So I think that that's a pretty good strategy. Whereas if you have like an average running back that's a little bit he's more shifty, but like a safety could easily come by and tackle him. So it becomes like a more like get him in space and like have him run far away for like a back like CJ2K or whoever. So are you still on the Vince Young bandwagon as far as your quarterback goes?
Yeah, I'm still using Vince Young. Rose has seen it. Like, I think when my whole conspiracy that I really believe in Madden is when they start updating the quarterback pool or the halfback pool or the wide receiver pool or so on. They make each player a little worse that was out for a while. Like Vince Young, I was throwing like blue and green Trey, and now with like the new QBs out and Steve Young out, I'm throwing more yellow, and he's kind of selling me more. But like right now, I'm just gonna rock with him, and then maybe get like a top QB down the road. But right now, I'm okay with him. So yeah, I'm still rocking with him. He's all right now. He's whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and Vince Young's another quarterback. Like he was probably like the first prospect that I remember watching him in college when he was with the Longhorns, and I remember when he went to the NFL with the Titans, and you had Jeff Fisher on there, and he actually had that 99 walk-off touchdown against the Arizona Cardinals. That was pretty cool. So he didn't really work out too good in the NFL, but I always liked Vince Young, and I'm kind of glad he's an Ultimate Team because he's like one of the players that I kind of grew up with in that era. But and like what was I gonna say? And I kind of feel bad because it's like I was gonna end the show, but then I feel like Rose just got here, so I'm kind of scrambling to kind of keep her around and try to think of different things to say. But Shane, like if Andy Reid wins the Super Bowl, right? So Andy Reid, like, do you think that Andy Reid is going to surpass Bill Belichick if he's able to three-peat? Because I already know where we're at with Mahomes at this point. Like he's not like win, lose or draw tomorrow. I don't think like in both of our eyes he's going to surpass Brady. He still has a while to go, but Andy Reid on the other hand, I think you could make the argument at this point.
I mean, he'd definitely be up there. It'd be definitely tough. Um, no, Rose said that it doesn't matter if we cut it. She can find other stuff to watch. Not that I hate it here or anything, but just so we know. Yeah, I mean, I got a little bit longer before I got to wrap it up because I got to do some stuff. No, I think Reed will be up in the echelon with Bill Belichick. I think that Mahomes has to win a few more. Obviously, I don't believe he will. Um, but here, I got one for you guys. Do your Super Bowl prediction. I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles, you guys. I'm actually thinking the Philadelphia Eagles are gonna be the winner, which would make my buddy AJ happy. What do you guys think? Who do you think's winning the Super Bowl, and who do you think's the MVP?
Like my gut, like the way that my gut is feeling is that I think it could end up being one of those games to where, Philly kind of gets up early. And I think the key for Philly in this game is like if they're able to get up early and they're able to keep their foot on the gas, I could honestly foresee this being like kind of like a one-sided game from Philly. With Kansas City, on the other hand, I think, and this might be because this is how Kansas City has won pretty much all their games, but I can't really see a scenario to where like Kansas City boat races Philadelphia. So I think for like Kansas City, I think it's going to be a close game if they end up winning. So, but I think if it ends up close, which is like the most realistic scenario, is that it's going to be a close nail biter type of a game. And like if it is a close nail biter game, then you kind of have to give the edge to Kansas City. But at the same time, you know what they say about luck and getting lucky and all that. At some point, the luck runs out, and with Kansas City being on the verge of a three-peat, if they get into another one of these nail biter close games, could it be the worst time, and could their luck eventually run out when they're at the doorsteps of history? Is the question. So, but that's kind of my take on how the game's going. If it's a nail biter finish, I'm probably going to go with Kansas City, but if it's going to be like a wide open game to where it's going to be more than two possessions, then I think I'm going to give the edge to Philadelphia in that one. But since Shane, you brought up AJ, shout out to AJ at the UMC boys. What's the vibe like in the UMC crew right now? Are you guys Still kicking it. Like, how are the vibes going in the UMC chat so far?
So Rose picked Casey as well, Trey. She thinks you can't pick against him right now, even though Philly should win. The UMC crew like is kind of dead since MCS has gone away. There's not many tournaments. A lot of the tournaments, you know what? Here, I'll tell you something why I think Madden's dying. Besides, how many people did it this year, the MCS compared to years past, and views and all that, is a lot of these MUT tournaments that you pay to play have been canceled from Slim Ghost to Red Hot Gaming. They've gotten canceled. Like it's been tough to do tournaments. Like they get canceled and then pushed back, and then eventually they get the people. There's way less tournaments going on than in years past. I really think that Madden needs to figure it out, but I mean, I I think they need to figure out how to keep it going until March for like have the Madden Bowl in March or April. But I think overall EA doesn't care because Super Bowl is it. So it's been kind of slow, Trey, though. But I mean, can't be too upset because the MCS is done, and it is getting close to spring.
Yeah, it's true. So definitely be on the lookout because Shane has some pretty good plans going into spring. He's going to be keeping you guys up with not only the patch updates but also the tips, and also going to be doing some streaming the tournaments. I know that the PS5 tournament last year was a pretty big hit, so we'll see if Sony ends up bringing that back, and then Shane can go through the quest of having his MUT team basically bullying all the kids on there that are trying to get Madden for free, and he's over there with like this God Squad. So we'll see how that one goes. But well, Shane, I know you were probably looking forward to watching the UFC fight. At least that's what he told me. So you're probably watching it on Stream East. I don't think you paid $80 to watch the UFC fight. So it is what it is. But on that note, we appreciate you guys for watching this. We appreciate the guys that were in the stream, and we appreciate the guys that listen to this on the rewind. And this will be archived, so you can go back and watch it. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about in future podcasts. So when we come back at you guys, hopefully there won't be any server issues. Hopefully there won't be any hacks or anything like that. We're able to bring you guys a podcast not this Friday, but the Friday after that. It will be pretty much off season mode. There's not going to be MCS anymore. There's not going to be NFL topics, so we'll probably be scrambling to come up with stuff to talk about. But that's what we have to do. So with all that being said, I'll throw it back over to Shane to close us out for another edition of the West Coast Podcast.
All right, I appreciate it, Trey. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna get myself in trouble, so um, I will buy it once in a while, like in the past, if it's like huge. I mean, it was pretty good the fights today, tonight. There's still one going on, but no. So yeah, we appreciate you guys being in here. We will be back February 21st at 10:30 p.m. Pacific time. Hopefully everybody enjoys the Super Bowl. Hopefully everybody gets some good food. Rose, appreciate you being in here. Everyone else, I appreciate you being in here. I am Shane, and with me as always was Trey. This is the West Coast Podcast on February 8th, 2025. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a good night.